of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. Delegations. We have one delegation up, so if you'd like to come forward.
Good afternoon, Andrea Blakeman.
Good afternoon.
Hello, I'm Tinny Lally, Development Consultant for Nanaimo Affordable Housing.
Good afternoon. I'm Dariush Firuzli, Architect for the project.
Thank you. Go ahead, please, begin.
I believe that you had a number of questions when we last left, and I sent some information to everybody so that we could illustrate the sort of tenants that we might be housing should this be an acceptable project for the City of Parksville. I'd like to answer your questions.
You would?
I would. I'm hoping to have good answers.
Then I will open it to the Council if they have any questions for the delegation. Councillor Wilson.
I think I'm on. Thank you, Your Worship. I actually have more than just questions. Well, okay. I wouldn't mind going through a few things. First of all, I'd like to thank you both again, or the three of you, for taking me through that long tour and answering many of my questions. I just want to say I have confidence in your society to build and manage housing projects based on my tour of your new builds in Nanaimo, currently under construction. My concerns are whether this proposal aligns with Parksville's affordable housing needs for low-income working families as identified by our community in the strategic plan workshops. I do support projects with a healthy, balanced mix of affordable housing types of 2- and 3-bedroom units for low-income working families who are contributing to our economy.
Excuse me, Councillor.
Questions?
It's on questions only.
All right.
At this time.
I will ask a question then, and it was sort of, I was going to lead into a question with that, but that's fine. I guess the apartments at 371, I think part of that you may have answered for me, Darush, are going to be, they're currently 80 units for 2 apartments. And then you mentioned that they will be redesigned to be smaller, like the ones at Buttertubs and Mill Street and Georgia Street apartments. And those units also have dining room, commercial kitchen, and no balconies. So perhaps you could answer for me the size of the units that they're going to be, how many units will be in each building, and whether they have those other amenities and no balconies. Thank you.
Thank you to the worship, Madam Councillor. The projects, yes, is required to have some adjustment. Units, 1-bedroom unit based on the BC housing standard has to be around 525 square feet, and 2 bedrooms, 725 square feet. So based on what the society needs, will be a mixture of those. My guess is going to be around 20% 2-bedroom and 80% 1-bedroom. Obviously, these required some changes to the design, but form and character, we wanted to keep as it is, and we may have to connect these 2 buildings for more affordable construction, but that doesn't mean reduce the quality. Obviously, if these changes happen, we have to come back to the council meeting for review and basically approval. Unit, we wish to have balconies, otherwise society don't want it, or BC Housing push that, but we've been successful to keep the decks in the past. Also, no commercial kitchen or dining. It will be around 800 square feet, amenity required, some small gathering type of thing for tenants. I hope answered the question.
Please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for answering that, Darush. So the other question that I wanted to sort of point out or have clarification on is that on the your proposal, actually it was for I guess for you, and it's your notice, your proposal, I should say, presentation said BC or people with varied backgrounds, as well as BCH says this on their website, and also BCH says in the RFP that buildings with integrated supports. So can you help me understand what you mean by varied backgrounds, and what would BC Housing mean by, in their RFP it says building with integrated supports? I'm a little confused about that.
Could you please reference the page in your RFP?
Oh my goodness,
which
I'd have to go back to
Oh, I have it here.
the RFP. Yeah. I wouldn't know the page offhand. There's a lot of pages to that RFP.
So what I will read is on page 7, 2.3, target population. This is the negotiable. This is the non-negotiable piece from a BC Housing perspective. The target populations are families, seniors, and persons with disability capable of living independently without on-site supports. So that could be young couple, teacher, policeman. That could be a young couple. That could be somebody, but in those ranges. I'm not with families. Like the townhomes. We could be talking about somebody with a permanent physical disability. We have many people with permanent disabilities that require housing if they're a single person for $375. No, there will be no children. Unless they're adult children, but no, that would be by special circumstance.
Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, through your worship, to the delegation. Andrea, if I could just ask you a question, and you've sort of answered it right there. I wanted to know the numbers, kind of rough percentage of potentially handicapped people that are living in these locations, and whether you even had close to that 25% or something along that lines, but also, and when you talk about, because I have an autistic nephew, let's say for an example, so he's 30, would he be considered a child that could be living in these locations?
That would be one of the exceptions.
Okay.
And BC Housing would be extremely supportive of that, because to find a couple with an adult dependent child a place to live is almost impossible.
And he's on the mainland. I'm not looking for a spot for him, but I'm just saying, I'm just asking.
I wasn't taking it that way. But you ask a very pertinent question, and we probably, in that type of a family unit, we probably have 5 to 10 calls a month for exactly that.
Thank you again, through the mayor, to Andrea again. I guess essentially I'd also like to know, what's the situation for pets and just animals in general, if I could, please.
I can't speak to personally because I'm an animal lover, to say the least, but as much as possible. So for example, 77 Mill Street, all of the patio homes will be able to have dogs under 25 pounds and then 1 indoor cat. The floors 2 to 4. Georgia Avenue right now, we have small dogs under 25 pounds and an indoor cat, or an indoor cat, not both. Typical patio homes right now will allow for an indoor cat or a small dog. So where possible, we understand the value that pets bring to people's lives, and where that's possible, we want to encourage that and support that.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and welcome, and thanks for coming back and helping to answer some of our questions here. I was interested in Darush. Is that correct? Okay, Darush. I was interested in your comments regarding the percentages. Correct me if I'm wrong. I was writing quickly. 525 square foot for 1 bedroom. and 725 square foot for 2-bedroom.
That's correct. And if they do need to any of these units to be accessible, there will additional 12% added to these areas. So, for instance, for 1-bedroom, if they are accessible unit, is 585, and if they are 2-bedroom accessible, it will be around 800 square feet.
Perfect, thank you. And then the percentages roughly were 1-bedroom were at 80% of the projected build, and then 2-bedroom were at 20%. Were those figures correct?
That's correct. This is initial conversation with the society. This may little bit change, but this is around what we're looking for at this moment. I
see, because my question regarding that is it's kind of disappointing, because I was hoping it would be the other way around. It would be 80% 2-bedrooms and so forth, because we have a need, a real need in this community for families, whether they're single parents with a child or regular family, a couple with a child type of thing, at least 1 or 2 children. We have a real need for them to have affordable housing in the area, and they're the working poor, so to speak. And so they're the ones that are working minimum wage jobs, sometimes a couple jobs, just to make ends meet. And they're saying there's no affordable housing for them. And it's a real problem, and it's a problem for the employers in the area, get people that actually can afford to live here. Now, from what you're saying here, Andrea mentioned that there's no children, which is really kind of shocking, because the thing is that a proper housing complex should have a balance of everything. It makes a great community. But at the same thing, no children, so that means that you're now eliminating all those working low-income people here in our area from entering this project, and that's disappointing to me, anyways. Sure. Yeah, I think maybe I missed something. Please do.
I was not clear.
Okay.
I was not clear. There will also be townhouses on the project that will cater to families, so they would be 3-bedroom, at least, family units as well.
As if I recall the plans, the townhouses were 6 units?
There are 6 units.
Yeah, 6 units, yeah. That's a little on the light side, too, for me, out of a project of this scope, and it was of 84 units. Yeah, and if it goes down to 1-bedroom from what it is presently permitted, would that number increase from 80 as well? If you're getting the 80% at 525 square feet, would you not actually create more than 80 units? In between, I think it's 2 buildings, is that right?
It is 2 buildings. Possibly we're going to make it 1. There is a density available to increase, but again, this is the size of the building. You have to see what the society is comfortable, because the end of the day they have to pay the mortgage and all of things. So there is possibility to increase the number of units, but if they required, I can design it. I just designed the building. I'm not deciding how many units or what the size of the unit should be.
Okay, I understand that, but as I say, once again, the 6 units as compared to even 80 and possibly more units, so only including families with children type of thing, because there's a real need here, because people have to actually, they're commuting from Nanaimo type of thing with cheaper accommodation, because there's no accommodation in Parksville. So if this is supposed to be like a Parksville project for a demonstrated need, I just feel that the demonstrated need right now, like we have as yours specs actually agree with, we have an awful lot of housing, affordable housing already. We have way more than our neighbors to the north. And the thing is, but we don't have enough affordable housing for these working families. And that's what I really feel, that we have a real need in this space. And I feel it's really unfortunate that instead of gearing towards them, it's actually geared against them. It's like, no kids, no allowed. I'm disappointed with that. I can say that. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to the delegation. This housing application is at 371 Alberni Highway. Can you give me a little bit of background on how the relationship was established with the current owners of the property to have your...
excuse me if I understand through the worship, is the current owner of the property, they getting joint with the client. We wanted to design build basically for BC Housing. Obviously, one of the precondition is this has to be a condition of the purchasing the property by society. But design build what the team is, including myself, current owner and the one contractor, we're building this one for the client.
Councillor Ferraz.
Thank you. Through the mayor to the delegation. I just want to get clarity on a couple things here. One regarding the children that Councillor Brown was mentioning too. You said that there's the 3-bedroom townhomes will allow for families with children. Would the 2 bedrooms not be suitable for single parents with a single child?
That is certainly a possibility. The original notion of the building was sort of to be a 50 plus, but there isn't. Again, I'm just going to refer to the RFP because it does dictate families, seniors, and persons with disabilities. So there are possibilities for amendments to that.
Thank you. I do hear in families that, to me, that kind of covers all of those bases, those kind of situations as well. So I would think that would be in line. I just thought I'd ask because you mentioned at one point no children, so it sounds like that might be for a particular portion of it. I was hoping that the 2 bedrooms and the 3 bedrooms would be able to include it. I do like hearing about the pets too. I know that's a struggle for a lot of people if they have a small animal, so I'm really happy to hear that they're allowed in there as well. Another question I have, if I may.
You may.
Could you explain what the application process is for anyone that's hopeful for getting into that affordable housing? Are they going to be applying through you, or will it be through the Nanaimo Affordable Housing Society, or will it be through BC Housing that they apply?
It would be through both. Both would be an opportunity. So we would look on the BC Housing website for people that are requesting affordable housing, and we would also have direct applications directly to us.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wilson, and then Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, Andrea, just a couple of questions, just for clarification. So, are you saying then that they would adjust the age so it wouldn't be 50 plus? Is that, just so we can confirm that?
I think that's going to have to be a conversation that we have about whether that is that's something that we can flex on.
So we'd have to wait to hear back from you before we could really make an informed decision on that.
Ideally, we would find out sooner rather than later. If that's something that the council really feels is a very strong place to come from, then we may have to look at that.
Follow up?
Please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a clarification. On your presentation, I noticed that you were speaking from some of the pages on the Oceanside Task Force on Homelessness report, and you mentioned tenants with behavioral issues, active addictions, not likely to be accepted in the Qualicum Beach Kiwanis housing. So I'm just wondering why you even put that on there and how that relates to the selection for your proposal here in Parksville.
It was part of research, background research that our staff did.
Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, through your worship, to the delegation again. So, Andrea, just a couple of questions again. I think firstly, you've looked at all these different projects. There's different things going on in different parts of Nanaimo. You've got a lot on the go. I was just in Nanaimo. I had a run by Buttertub. I took 10, 11, 12, I think it is there. So I took a run by those, and Mill Street I know very well because I've been there a couple of times. And so, I mean, I like the look of the properties. I think there's definitely on the Buttertub location. I think it's got a good feel to it, the community feel. With your understanding of what we need here in this area, would you have final say on who goes into this building through your system, or does BC Housing have final say?
We have final say, period.
Okay, good. That's great. Thank you. And then in regards to, I guess in regards to the potential of having young families, we talk about families being approved in there, and that's, I'm certain, something you could organize with BC Housing to tweak the RFP, I would suspect, once that happens.
We don't tweak RFPs.
No, I
It's
guess.
an application process?
I
Sorry.
guess after the fact, I guess. Yeah.
We determine who goes into the buildings,
Okay.
period. So long as it adheres to what is put through in these guidelines.
Sure. And I, again, just to refer back to Councillor O'Brien, with Councillor O'Brien's comments about the families, I totally get that. It's important. Luckily, with a lot of families, and not speaking for anybody as far as income levels, but luckily both people in the family typically work. There's a component there where people have to have daycare, and so that takes away from the second person working. Obviously, it sort of draws a lot of that funds out of there. So I guess in reality, we do want this affordable housing for families as well, young families with kids. But in reality, they do have a little bit higher medium income as a joint venture as compared to somebody that's in strife that has potentially a damaged spine, or somebody with an injury, or somebody that's just fallen on hard times that may have lost their spouse and living there. So I just wanted to kind of just point that out. So thank you.
Councillor Frass.
Thank you, and through the mayor to our delegation. One of the questions I have too is regarding the parking for the buildings and for the units. What kind of parking variance or what kind of parking expectations will you guys be having?
At the moment, for if my memory, remember properly, for the townhouses, we have. I believe 6 extra parking, but for the 2 apartment building, we have 1 shortage, which this is approved DP we're talking. So assuming we are not changing the number of units, this will be stay as it is.
Okay, so there's not expecting like a big drastic change down to a 0.5 or anything for, okay, sounds like around the 0.1. I'm curious too, as we look into the future, there's a lot of infrastructure for electric vehicles being spoken about. We get questions here about us bringing in community charge stations. I'm wondering if this development would have any provisions in place. If anyone moved in and had an electric vehicle, would they be able to charge it anywhere at the?
That is the standard practice for BC Housing, maybe.
Sorry, I missed that. It was around the parking?
Will there be any provisions for electric car vehicles for anyone who might own them and look to move into that area?
Well, BC Housing has a requirement that a certain number of stalls have to be electric charging stations. We'll probably have to put 2 or 3 in there that are available to the entire building. So it's actually a requirement of theirs. In terms of the parking requirement itself, we've done numerous studies, and we just completed one in Nanaimo. And the parking studies tend to support about 60% of market for non-market housing, because a number of people don't actually drive, and they're kind of encouraged to take transit or whatever. But that's kind of where most affordable housing projects are going, is around 60% of what a typical market would do. A number of the people at the lower end of the scale just don't have cars, and if you're into the seniors, a lot of them just they start abandoning cars. So that's kind of, we have a number of reports that indicate that works. So.
Yeah, thank you. I think being close to the grocery store and where the location is it's within walking distance to many things in the community. So I agree with you there.
May I add to the parking?
Sure, yeah, please.
Based on experience in a number of our buildings, because probably close to 70% or so of our buildings are seniors, there's a lot of empty parking spots. So that the relaxation, in fact, on butter tubs is, I think, 0.3 relative to a market building. And we don't anticipate having any issues with the parking that we have there. So.
Yeah, one more follow-up with it.
One more.
When we had met there too, you had talked about some projects having car shares at them. How do you see the future of car share programs with affordable housing? Maybe you could explain kind of the direction it's gone or the requirements that you need to until you find that it's.
Well, I can't explain what's going on because it's something brand new, and we've connected with Modo, so we're in the process. So one of the pieces with Modo is that they want to have another car not too far away. It's a $25,000 buy-in, so you purchase the car, and it needs to be relatively close to another car that's already established. So that's the process that we're working on with 77 Mill Street and a property that we're redeveloping a block and a half away. So it's a long process. It might not come to fruition for 2 years, but that is something that is part of our organizational philosophy to help get cars off the road and be more environmentally sensitive.
Great, thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just another question. In the background information, I noted that it suggested that some units could be used for transition housing for individuals that may need some extra support staff. Is that not correct? Or I see a look on your face that you were referring to one of your other projects or something, but not this one.
This has nothing to do, this is totally independent. It has nothing to do with transitioning to anything. This is totally independent housing. That is in the RFP. It's not negotiable.
Okay, so that there's no further supports needed for tenants then?
The only people that would be on staff would be either our maintenance staff or our tenant relations staff.
Fair enough. Thank you. And further on, when Councillor Challoner was talking about the family situation and so forth, so I wanted to be clear that the second bedrooms that I was referring to would also refer to like families that are still considered as single parents with a child or 2 children type of thing. So that's what was my comment about that, but you still need that second bedroom, right?
Yes.
So the thing is that whether it's a working couple type of thing that, may, as Councillor Challoner pointed out, may have a higher median income type of thing, that, also would be, I think, eliminated from this project, would be single parents, just one income coming in, and possibly having to pay daycare as well. So that was my concern anyways, because that would be more 2-bedroom units that would...
May I help answer that part of the question,
Yes.
if I understood it correctly?
Yes.
So in this particular program, 20% will be at shelter rates, 50% will be at rent geared to income, so that's a very large sliding scale. So that could be a working couple, that could be a single parent. On very minimal, it could be 375. So shelter rates, 50% is rent geared to income, so 30% of the gross income, and the other 30% will be below market. So there's a very wide variation on rents in all types of units.
But the problem being that it's a single parent. You mentioned if there's a single parent with a child, where's that child going to sleep?
There's 2 bedrooms, or or townhouses.
No, but you mentioned that there was no
Well,
children.
If that's really a need in the community, as you've identified, that's a conversation that we want to satisfy as well.
I see, right. Okay. Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, that's good. If it's part of the possibility, then that is a real factor.
It has to be
really
part
is.
of the possibility. If you want to
Yeah.
build your communities, we want to do that too. We want
Right.
to support your goals.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
In respect to the 2 bedrooms, I think, we're preparing an RFP and we've had some ideas on what we want to do. However, I think if we were looking for a letter of support from the community, if that letter of support was to encourage us to include some 2 bedrooms, it certainly would help us with BC Housing, because they often have issues with need and demand. So if the letter of support came and said we would like to see 20% of these geared to family, that's something within your ability to do in a letter, and then we would then take that and accommodate it into the project. Or, in this case, there's two buildings, and we could look at perhaps different options. We have a number of options, and so I don't want people to go away thinking that we can't put some family in here, more than just the 8 units that we're talking about.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I guess that partly addresses what I was going to say. There is another RFP that's coming out in January 2021 that I know Qualicum Beach is there. Kiwanis is going for that, a similar sort of thing. So I guess the clarification would be for whether, if you can't get this RFP designed the way you need to, would you be able to then make a submission for January of 2021 with the conditions that we have, if you can't be sure that you can make family units?
Yeah, the project, the RFP does have two RFP dates to it. One is referred to as shovel-ready projects, which is we're quite close to shovel-ready, and that's what the September proposal call is for. They want us in the ground as quick as possible. We think that probably quite a few of the projects will probably approved in this first phase. There's a total of 3,000 units available between the two phases, but they're not split out as 15. They could virtually take all 3,000 units and hand them out in the September proposal call. The January proposal call becomes a bit dicey on what's going to be available, if anything. In addition, I think you have to keep in mind that this is a private land deal, and we would have to consult obviously with the landowners if they'd have to be part of the process for an additional year or so, because that process is actually going to be a lot slower than this one. When you go into that proposal call, there'll be a lot of projects that are just starting from scratch. It'll take BC Housing a significant amount of time to go through the process. Some of those buildings probably won't start construction for 3, 4, maybe 5 years. And that's typical for BC Housing when you go into that RFP.
Follow up? Thank you. So that being said, how would we be guaranteed that if we were to give you a letter of support, that we would have our needs met under this proposal? It sounds like if you're shovel ready now, there's going to be a real rush to design the kind of project that would suit Parksville's needs for family affordable housing.
Well, I think some of this would fall on Dariush to come up with a plan that's very, he's got the basics there. I don't want to speak for Dariush, but I think accommodating some 2 bedrooms for family is not necessarily a really difficult task. The question would be, how many units do we go with family? Do we go with 20 units? Do we go with 10 units? We'd have to sort of do a little bit of homework, which, we do have some time to get there. If the direction is you want family, then we would have to obviously step up and create some more family. Perhaps not as many as you would like, but keeping in mind there will be other RFPs coming out, and perhaps we come back with a project that's all family. So we're hoping that this isn't a one-off project with them. There'll be other opportunities to create other types of projects. So this is not the one and only project I think that's going to come into Parksville. So we should keep that in mind, that we could very well come back in the second proposal call and say, let's do all family. So it's quite open. It's really, the society will have some sway here, as will you two, as will the council. So,
Councillor Chandler?
Sorry, may I?
Yes, please.
Excuse me.
Oh, please, go ahead.
As we know, we do have a work to do, and this will be basically new design will be coming back to the councillor. Basically, there is a chance to councillor all to see the project before actually approving the updated DT or amended the DP.
Councillor Chandler.
I will defer to Councillor Wilson just to answer that question.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. So can you hear me? Is my mic on? Yes. So I guess where my confusion still is that you say it'll come back to us, but if we give our support now so that you can apply for this RFP, how locked in are we to this? In other words, we've given our support, but that support is for what we know we want, affordable family housing. The majority is what has been identified on our strategic plan and our workshops from the people in Parksville. So if you're saying that we might not be able to give you as much as you want, like who's really saying, who's in control of this? Like who is answering our needs and who has the final say as to how that RFP will be presented to BC Housing and come back to us. Can we refuse to, if you come back and say, well, here it is, but we're only going to give you 20% families, and that's not what we want, then what do we do? How do we then say, well, sorry, but we've changed our minds, or how will that work?
The process, I don't want to talk for Andrea, but process is this. Basically, we go with this letter of support to the BC Housing for respond to the RFP. And if we are successful on the accepting with BC Housing, then we do have a timeline to finish the project. But we have to basically, our existing DP obviously need to be amended. Based on the society needs, we will design the building and the recommendation from the councillor, but the society has to do the final say what type of the unit and size of the unit they do need.
Sure. Last one.
So in other words, then the society will actually submit the RFP based upon what they think they want to put here. Is that
That's
clear?
correct.
So it isn't what we want necessarily, it's what you want to put here. Okay.
I believe Andrea can answer that one, but I don't think so any society wants to do not successful projects. They always go through the needs of the society basically, community, and then go from there. If you wanted to continue on that.
I'm seeing this as a partnership, Parksville and NAS. So we would want to take into what you need and want as a community and make sure that we can fulfill that as a society.
Can I respond to that, Your Worship, please?
Let's put it off. Councillor Chandler has been patient on this.
Thank you, through your worship, to the delegation again. I think just in regards to the need, we've already talked about the need for quite a few applications, over 300 in the Oceanside area. We're not just talking Parksville, obviously, but Oceanside area. I think that we've all talked about so many times about housing for seniors. We talked about this project as being a beginning stage of 50 plus, 55 plus, which is, there's a real need. I mean, our population here is aged. We have a lot of fixed income seniors that are really struggling here. I totally get the whole scenario with the families and single moms with kids. I mean, that's always been a scenario. But there's another option there too as well. There's more options down the road as we go. I think this project covers all avenues in different percentages. So I would personally like to make a motion and possibly move forward just to show our support or not support.
Hold on to that thought for just a second. Is there any other questions last time around? Fair enough. Go ahead. Actually, Councillor Greer was the one that he had already asked to make the motion. So
I will defer to Councillor Greer. He's better looking.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I'd like to make a motion that the council support the Affordable Housing Society in the request for financial support for BC Housing.
seconded by, it doesn't matter. Councillor Chandler, discussion. I would like to make, before we go, I'd like to make an amendment, a friendly amendment to this, or amendment to this. I would like to suggest that we put in there that that the society give more consideration to families that take into consideration this concern that everybody seems to have. So if we can do that and work that into the letter of support, as you had suggested, that might make sense. It's a friendly amendment. If you will agree with it.
Yes, can I speak to that?
No, do you agree to it?
Well, I agree to it, yeah.
Okay, then hold on. I got to get the seconder over here to agree to it. All right, now you can go.
Well, my thought was that this is simply about the financing, and that they're after our support for that. And it sounds like they're willing to come back after that when they find out they get the money, that they'll do work with us and give us what we want. I understand that to be what you're trying to say here all afternoon, is that right now you're after the permission to go to BC Housing and get the money, and then you're prepared to work and do part of it what we would like you to do.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really wasn't going to speak, but I will speak to this. This question again is that when it comes back to us, if we give you our support and you say you'll work with us, if we want 50% families, will you? If we want 50% families, will you give us 50% families?
Define for me, please, if you wouldn't mind, what you're looking for is for families.
If we want half of the units to represent for families, and the rest could be seniors.
So two bedrooms or more.
Yes.
2 bedrooms or more will be extremely difficult financially to manage, holding the mortgage.
So is that your reason then, because you're holding the mortgage, that you want 1 bedrooms?
If we can't pay the mortgage, we can't operate the building.
I'm not sure I really understand how a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom would be less money for you.
My CFO would have. It can be extremely difficult to have a whole building full of 2, 3, 4-bedroom units without a whole lot more subsidy than what this building will support. So this particular program, there's other programs that would support a full family. So it might be $1,000 or more from kicking in from BC Housing as a monthly top up, for lack of a better word. So this particular program would be 50% might be a little bit high.
So you could come back with something and work with us on a reasonable amount then that would
Absolutely.
we'd happy with.
Absolutely. I mean, the finances have to work. I mean, if you can't pay your mortgage, you can't keep your house.
Right.
Unfortunately, we're in the same position.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just to pick up on that last comment, I would think that the 2-bedroom places would fetch a higher rental rate, would they not?
20% at least of those 2-bedroom units would be at shelter rates, which would be far below market rate,
Right.
far below what the mortgage would actually cover.
I see.
So it's a formula, and it's a big Excel spreadsheet that boggles my mind every time our CFO does it. But so it has to be balanced. We have to make the numbers work so we can, like I said, keep the mortgage afloat.
That makes sense. And further to Your Worship, your comment about amending this motion anyways to include families, I think if we put a number on it that would be palatable to because I'm trying to get a partnership going here with you people, because I've studied your work in Nanaimo. You come highly rated, I can say that. So the thing is that I'd like to do this. So if we can come up with an amendment with us as to families and so forth, as the mayor suggested, to suggest up to maximum that you can do to make this project work with your mortgages and so forth, would you be acceptable to that? And I understand what Darius is saying as well, that you're going to work together with us. So the thing is, I just want a little more concrete. The mayor suggested an amendment to include families. I'd like a little bit more to say 40% or 50% or with the attempt to achieve that within your mortgage boundaries. Something like, would that work for you?
I would lie if I could say I could pull a number out of my hat, because I don't know. I would have to sit down with our CFO, and that'll take some time to do that. But yes, will we work with you? Of course, as a partner.
You understand the intent of the amendment, that we're trying to get families in there. I think maybe if you understand that and you agree with that, then
I understand that, and I do agree with it.
Yeah, I would be very acceptable to the mayor's motion amendment.
Okay, fine. Councillor Fraz, sorry. Councillor Fraz.
Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
Just speaking to this amendment, I do support the idea of, in our letter of support to BC Housing, to include about families. I don't think we need to hold them to a certain number. I do think that'll be for the Nanaimo Affordable Housing Society to figure out what'll work best. It sounds like there's a lot of factors that go into it, from managing the mortgage to the needs of the community. When I think about us just initiating and explaining to BC Housing, or getting it on there, that we are interested in bringing more family units to Parksville, I think it just starts to seed that message in there. But no, I think no matter what we bring to town for affordable housing, it's not going to fill enough of a need, whether it be for seniors, whether it be for singles or for families. I think we're at the stage right now where anything that we can get into our community is going to be a drastic help. So I think just this high-level support of asking for more family units, it should be enough on a support letter to BC Housing at this point. That's my thoughts.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson?
Thank you, Worship, and I echo Councillor Fraz's comments pretty much completely. My question is, if this RFP submission to BC Housing is successful in September, what's your turnaround? What do we expect to see? Shovels and...
Sorry, Councillor Patterson, can we hold that until we handle the amendment? And then once the amendment's done, then you can come back. You'll be first on the list, I promise. All right, so we need a vote on the amendment that we put in, because it is a friendly one. We still need a vote on it. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Okay, now please. Thank you, Councillor Patterson, for your patience. You voted against it? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you over there then. You got it? Thank you.
Okay, so my question was, with this RFP submission in September, and I know you don't have full control, that's with BC Housing as well, how close to shovel-ready are you with this project?
The requirements of BC Housing in their RFP is fairly clear. They want to see a DP in place with the ability to apply for a building permit within about 2 months. They want the project from the time they actually start looking at it to the time the doors open 20 months. So it's a very tight timeline. Some things are probably going to have to move ahead of others, which you normally may not do, but if you get awarded the project, we may have to jump around a little bit there, but they're pretty adamant on the 20 months.
Follow up, Your Worship?
Please.
Thank you. This original project on that piece of property has a development permit already been approved. So how much change is going to be required? Will it require a full new development permit application?
I have to get basically the guidance from the clients in terms of the number of the unit and what we're looking for. We are trying to keep the form and character as it is, basically narrowing down the units. Now they are 30 feet deep, 24 feet wide. It's going to be just narrowing down and percentage of the 2-bedroom, basically that's the item I do need to work on that. Per fast we can come back to the councillor for the addendum to the DP, but I believe we are not going to do that until we know if we are selected from the BC Housing.
Okay. Councillor O'Brien?
Great. Just for clarification, through your worship, clarification, just the ownership. I'm somewhat concerned about, I'm not sure, okay, so the ownership of the building after, if all approved type of thing, if everything goes like we hope it does here. So if the ownership of the building is at Nanaimo Housing Society, and how about the ownership of the land?
The land in the building would be ours.
So you are entering in a purchase agreement for that
Correct.
land from the current owners of that site?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to make my comments and then I'll call the question. First off, I intentionally didn't put a number on the number of family units because I figured you would come back with what worked financially or not. Secondly, we do need affordable units of this magnitude. The last time we ever built a building like this in Parksville was approved when I was mayor 10 years ago with the Lions Club. So we are missing out on income-driven rental units. Those are not the same as the affordable housing that everybody wants to talk about, where it's 80% of of the median wage, and 30% of that is the rent. That doesn't work for the people at the lower end of the scale. So we definitely need this type of a project. I agree 100% that we need it for more units for families, although not the whole building, because as Councillor Chandler indicated, there are a number of senior citizens that require a place to stay. There are a number of people with disabilities who need a place to stay. So there's a wide array of individuals that require this. So what works out financially, I understand that. I think from the development permit aspect, if we don't change the exterior, this is going out to the Director of Planning, if we don't change the exterior of the building, it doesn't require it to go back to the table, does it, for a new development permit?
If I may, Your Worship, if the general form and character is maintained and the building is essentially the same in trunk, it would not trigger a DP. If changes are more extensive, it might.
So I ask our very talented architect to make sure that he holds those to the line so that we can get this through and get it done quickly. Nothing would make me happier than get it done in less than the 20 months that you've indicated is what BC Housing looks for. So with that, I'm going to call the motion on the question on this motion. So all those in favor? Opposed? We'll note that Councillor Wilson voted against it. Thank you very much. We will draft you that letter, and we'll get it out to you immediately, if not sooner. You have it drafted?
Well, no.
No.
Damn.
Haven't had time for that, sorry.
Okay, we'll work on it.
I'm sure you have some fabulous staff that could do a much better job than myself. Some of the things that are very, very helpful to make these projects work financially, DCC forgiveness, which I think you do anyways.
It falls under that category, yes.
Okay. Property tax forgiveness.
Falls under that category.
We've talked a little bit about parking relaxation. I think that there's going to be a lot of extra. If there's a possibility to expedite the BP or provide an early excavation permit, that would be extremely helpful to get the ball rolling. As you see, the tight timeframes are really tight. And maybe a foundation permit, again, for the same reason, because it's really, really a tight time frame.
I understand. Thank you. I have a question for staff, if I may. When we're talking about waiving of tax exemptions, that has to be approved by council, correct? It's not an automatic.
If I may, Your Worship, essentially the permissive tax exemptions are done each year by council unless it's a statutory exemption. So if it's a church or a school, those are statutorily exempt. Every other exemption that we provide is voluntary and approved each year through bylaw.
Okay.
The only caveat would be there are some classes of housing that have a $1 assessment, which we just recently discovered.
Yes, and we will try not to have that happen again.
So those would obviously have a very low tax assessment, but otherwise it's approved each year.
Okay, thank you. So there's your answer on that, and we will be glad to look at all of those. Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your delegation. Parks and Open Space recommendations. Mrs. Tardif, I understand you're going to give us the background on this. Cleaning, house cleaning, sundry duties. Good discussion, by the way, from everybody. It was really good.
It's open, it's just minimized, but they all just went to sleep. Great, thanks.
I can see mine fine. The old guy can see it, everybody can.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I've been asked to do a brief report on the projects improvements to the Parksville Community Park, and this was a request after the most recent Parks and Trails Committee meeting, and it's basically to sort of let you know how we got to where we are with these projects. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. Why don't they put the keys in the same place on every... There. So two projects, as I know you're aware, the outdoor stage and the Gathering Plaza. When the application went in for the CCR grant, these were put in together because they were seen as complementary projects. One a more formal entertainment space and the other a more informal gathering space. So when the grant went in, it was submitted in January 2019, awarded just this past June, and those are the numbers. The total project was 1.7 million. We received almost 3, and the breakdown of the amounts are there. So the gathering place and the outdoor stage. The completion dates are very close to what we put in the original grant application, which is surprising given how long it took to get approval for this grant. In addition to those numbers, we received, the city received $204,750 from Ice-T, and that's specifically for the outdoor stage. The gathering space came out of the Community Park Master Plan. There was extensive consultation that was done for the master plan between March and July 2017. There were probably 8 to 10 individual events, a couple of surveys, and we were very close to 2,000 people, both residents and visitors. And this was a very strong desire and need for an improved community gathering space in the community park. This document is from the Community Park Master Plan, and that was 2017. That's the concept drawing that we submitted as part of the grant application for the gathering space. So you can see that round circle is the area where the sand is, and it was to build alongside. Part of the process following acceptance of the Community Park Master Plan by Council was the implementation committee, which met pretty much for all of 2018. And this was was part of the recommendation that went to Council in September 2018. This was one of the recommendations in that report. And the recommendations in the implementation strategy were those first 5 years of the Community Park Master Plan, the short-term actions that would be implemented over those 5 years. The only thing that's a bit off is the start date just says 2021, but the completion date would be June 2022. It would begin late in 2021. And there was $600,000 already in the budget as a result of the implementation strategy being accepted by Council. This just gives you an idea of the timeline that took to get to the grant award in June. The application for the grant was pretty much finished when, for the gathering space, when Beach Festival came to council late in the fall to ask to have the application include the outdoor stage. So we scrambled, got it submitted by, I think it was the 19th of January. And it was, it really, the application married the two projects, I think, extremely well, but that's because I wrote it. So those are just a couple of resolutions from council, adding it to the outdoor stage. So you can see there was one done on the 21st of January. And so I'm going to, unless you have any questions, I'm going to turn this over to the manager of Parks and Facilities to talk about the next grant application. Really?
No questions? You got away lucky.
All right.
We're saving them all up for the next person.
Good afternoon, everyone. So staff are seeking direction from council in regards to the next intake of the CCR grant program. And there's a couple considerations of projects that are upcoming, and I wanted to provide some updates as well on those. So basically, the Kin Hut staff have received approval to put in a new washroom facility for the Kin Hut for $500,000. $80,000 this year to go out for RFP for design and construction management services, and $420,000 next year for the actual development of the building. In part of the consultation with the community going forward, a lot of the user groups felt they needed more amenities within this space. The storage was lacking. They wanted change rooms. They want a meeting room. You know, it's get as much as we can. And this was basically a wish list at that time. So one of the things that we've come up with is staff are considering the location shown on the two maps. So it's the same location from two different views. It's by Raven Drive. So it's that area in the space between the parking lot and heading towards where the open field is, where the performance stage will be. Pickleball is the other update. So staff have approval to seek conversion alternatives of the tennis courts at Community Park to a permanent pickleball facility. We have $294,800 left in the approved pickleball facility development. We contracted ISL engineering consultants to come in and have a look at the existing pickleball or the existing tennis courts infrastructure, and as well to look at doing line painting and minor repairs to the lacrosse box. They've included a 30% contingency in their amounts, and that's come out to $399,400. So we have a budget of $294,000, and we have a estimate of $399,000. So that leaves us a shortfall of $104,600. So there is also in 2021 and 2022 some monies that are in the 5-year capital plan to do some drainage works around the tennis court, which could be amended into this project to give us a refined deficit of $70,750. So with the Kin Hut, one of the things that for the money that we have available, so for $500,000, I've built a few washrooms over the last few years. For a custom washroom to be built, you're looking at anywhere from $750 to $1,000 a square foot to build washrooms. They get extremely expensive. So that all depends on the scope, what we want to include, obviously, if we want to have these storage, the possible meeting rooms, change rooms, or is it just a washroom? So one of the questions that was put to the Parks and Open Space Committee was looking for solutions, and I know you've seen the resolution that came forward from yourselves as well as the committee, was to look for storage opportunities. And one of the things that we've looked at is taking the existing Kin Hut that we do have now and turning that completely into storage and putting that new washroom facility in that location that was shown on the first slide. So one of our opportunities with that is that there are prefabricated concrete facilities that are built. I have put them in before. They're extremely attractive. They're durable. They're weather resistant for Oceanside. You know, and a similar unit would consist of, let's say, 2 multi-user restrooms, 6 toilets in total, 2 accessible spaces with options for exterior color and texture, would land in Parksville, all tax included, for $295,673. That includes delivery and installation. Comes with BC stamped engineered drawings. Site preparation, including sub-basin servicing, would be in addition, would be undertaken by city staff or contracted out pending timelines and staff availability. That's estimated between $35,000 and $50,000. There's also many options that we could put in to enhance a facility such as this, such as hot water, electric hand dryers, electronic flush valves, and faucets. Bringing that up with an extra $22,000 for a total of $317,000. The conversion of the storage of the kin hut to storage this time is estimated at $50,000. So with all those things considered, so the site prep, purchasing of a prefab unit, the conversion of the kin hut to storage, plus the 20% contingency keeps us online at 501. So right within the budget scope. However, this presents for us an opportunity with the new CCR intake that's coming up, with all the wants that were put towards us from the community that we're hearing, not having the budget available at this time, and within that 420,000 or 500 if we go with the way of a prefab unit. Staff have $800,000 approved for upgrades to the kin hut and for pickleball, with grant eligibility for 73.3%, which equates to a grant ask of $1.5 million for a project total of $2.3. It's an opportunity for us to build something within this area, having some of these additions added onto it, such as a concession, paving of the gravel parking lot near the sports fields. We could perhaps look at putting a viewing platform on top of this new building that we would build, with a meeting room and change rooms, and having a complete facility. The location was chosen to help serve. It's still going to be in an area that serves both the sports users as well as the beachgoers, and support the performance stage. So basically, we have an a la carte menu of items that we could add or drop from a potential new building if council directs staff to seek grant opportunities. We do not have firm costs at this time on some of the a la carte items. We would source those estimates for the grant application pending direction.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just looking at the pickleball and tennis courts, $400,000. Is that just to do painting of the lines and so on, or are they going to redo the whole surface?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Greer. So I do have a report to go to council on the pickleball itself as well, to bring forward as directed by council on the recommendation that we received. So what we've entertained through when we brought in ISL Engineering, they brought in a TerraTech firm to come in and do we did some core samples underneath to find out why it was failing, because we have major cracks, we have some dips within the surface, it's undulating, it's over 25 years old, and not, and not something that, everything has a lifespan, and particularly with asphalt. Concrete's permanent, asphalt's temporary. And when we did go down and take a look, the sub-base itself is not consistent. So the gravel underlay is not consistent. It varies in itself. It has failed, as well as the overpour of Portland cement and asphalt that's there now undulates throughout the whole surface as well. So it's not like a static number going across, and it needs to be redone.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. This mic doesn't work properly. Can we get a copy of this, Guy, of your report, or not?
Of the pickleball?
Of your presentation, I should say.
Of this presentation?
Yes.
I'm sure you could, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Franz.
Thank you. Through the mayor. Question is regarding the washroom facility. talked about having a meeting room in there, concession in there, change rooms. How large of a footprint is this going to take up? As I ask, because thinking about that spot that you highlighted on that on the slide there, that doesn't seem to be a big area in my mind, and this sounds like it could be a big building. So is it going to take up most of that space? Is there going to be any green space left, and is that going to mean removal of trees into that spot there too, or what's going to be required? And
through the mayor to Councillor Frass. Originally, the intent of where this location was chosen was for the concrete prefab washroom facility to go in, and then convert the kin hut to storage, as I explained at our Parks and Open Space Committee meeting. It all depends on what council, if council endorses to go forward with a grant application, then we can look and see what best fits within that space. There may be a tree or two lost. There are a couple of deciduous trees at the forefront facing the sports fields. One to the right that's not by any means an outstanding specimen that may have to be sacrificed for the development of such an amenity within the park. We would have to look, as pending on direction from council, how big this facility would be is actually what we'd have to lay out. Now, change rooms can be anything, and this isn't exactly a huge sports hub by any means, but we do have, we have baseball there, we have slow pitch there, we have soccer, we have walking soccer, we have lacrosse, we have volleyball playing. A change room facility that doesn't have to be able to house more than one team at a time changing, or the two teams, doesn't have to have 3 or 4. I don't, something in the line of 2,000 square feet, I would imagine would suffice to carry most of these amenities.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through to Guy. I believe, as I recall, some of the comments that we made anyways at the committee level was that the washroom, the prefabricated washroom, as you have suggested, was going to be a standalone as it is type of thing. It's like a package, and we, as you've described it, the concession is kind of one of those a la carte items that we can add, and does not necessarily have to be tied in with the washroom. We recognize the fact that the washroom is super priority on here, so we want to make sure that happens. But the concession is going to be kind of extra, and I know some of the comments that came around at the concession was it could be incorporated into the gathering place. There was an initial concept for food trucks and so forth, and maybe the concession could be incorporated into the gathering place, and whether we put change rooms or something on top of that, to whatever. But I know that we had a real problem with the last time when we had the washroom and the concession in the same area. It was already crowded on both halves. It was insufficient washroom and insufficient concession. So the thing is that I don't want to get into that same trap. The thing is that let's build a proper washroom. So that was kind of the comments we had anyways, and recognizing that concession is considered a la carte, but at the same time, if we can get it in on a grant application at this particular time, then it makes it a little more palatable to our budget anyways, and that's why the push is to look at it at this time.
Through the mayor to Councillor Bryan, if I could, I guess the original, we were going to go forward and we were going to do as directed by council and do the replacement of the kin hut, put a washroom in and provide storage opportunities. I was going to come back with a pickleball report and say, here's where we're at, what would council like to do? And this opportunity for the second intake of the CCR grant came forward, and staff put their heads together quite rapidly, albeit, but we thought, what's the best opportunity for this community that we can leverage some of this money that's going to be coming down to stimulate infrastructure, and because we're building such a world-class, we already have a world-class park, but we're adding fine amenities to it, that we thought this was an opportunity to look and see what we could do and not just have a washroom. Could we put a concession in? Can we add storage in there as well? So these are all items that can be discussed, and we can look at if we're given that opportunity to go forward and make it fit the budget of what we would request from the CCR.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. I have 2 questions, but looking back at the Parks and Open Spaces Committee updates, the committee didn't support the staff applying for the grant at the time, so it's come before council. So if I could have clarification first on that.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so we decided to bring this to council so that everyone could have input in it, since it's a pretty major item. There's just the two of us as well. There wasn't a lot of background information at the time. It was just kind of brought forward, so these figures weren't available at the time. I didn't want to bring a committee recommendation to council, and so the council think that there was a lot of thought put into it when perhaps there wasn't. So that's why we're here.
And then my follow-ups.
Please.
Thank you. Through the mayor, to Guy or maybe to Deb, I'm not entirely sure. The funding opportunity is October 1st, 2020. Tight, as always, for grant applications. How realistic is the application? We've been really successful, and that I think this would tie in nicely, definitely. So if either one of you want to answer.
If I may, Your Worship, it will be a scramble because it's a big grant application. It's extensive, but we've done it before.
Councillor Chandler. Oh, I thought you put your...
Thank you. Through the mayor to Director of Parks Operations Guy. I guess I had a question in regards to the concession. Could that be incorporated into a meeting room in some respects of some sort of community kitchen in a sense, like where that could be for meetings, people could rent the whole space and add, you know, a caterer could use it, say for an example, that kind of thing, as opposed to a concession specific?
Through the mayor to Councillor Chandler, I think it could be anything that we sort of would like to undertake. From my knowledge of concessions, you know, they're either ran by the city and staffed by the city, or they're out to one of contract where they pay a stipend based upon a percentage of share, or they lease the space. So a lot of times that can create issues with letting that space, if that's for the leasee to hold, can cause issues. It all depends on what we want to visualize, what council wants to visualize on this. So,
thank you. Yeah, I just thought about, you know, some of the most useful things for sports facilities and even just community rental. It would be a great way to offer up opportunities for people to actually have small parties down there and, you know, get-togethers that are within the guidelines, obviously. But I think it would be really cool, even for us as a city, to be able to use something like that and you know, using it as a property that could be for small gatherings, meetings, you know, things like that with full kitchen, right? So just a comment. So thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I may have had my question answered, but I'll just add a comment about the gravel parking lot. You're going to put in the 400 just to see if we can get the grant, but do we really need to pave that parking lot? I mean, environmentally, it's better for water drainage anyway, left as a gravel lot, I would think, would it not?
Through the mayor to Councillor Wilson, from my perspective, if it was up to me, I would pave it. I think that it provides a clean, finished look. We have dust all summer until we go and put down a calcium product to control that dust. You know, we have to grade it continually from, I guess, over exuberant youth spinning the wheels of their cars in it. You know, it does, we get gravel up in the grass for the mowers, it becomes an issue. You know, or gravel in the grass, sorry. I myself think that it would be finished off better. We could have delineated parking. We'd know our parking capacity far better. And I take your point well as to you know, to water infiltration. I totally understand that. We are in a space, you know, with it properly set up, and I think we have this number came in this morning from engineering, our partners in engineering. So whether that water is going to be detained or retained and gone back into the aquifer.
Thank you. I think your points are well taken. Thank you.
Councillor Greer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment on the parking lot, and then I have another question. I can tell you from the ball players, I'm pretty familiar with them all down there. They would like to have it paved, for sure. The other comment was, I'm not so sure, have you had a lot of requests for change rooms down there? Ball players in general, the ones that play down there, really don't need or require a change room. I'm just wondering how much space that's going to take up.
Through the mayor, to Councillor Greer, I have not, but it was on the original wish list of what I saw when I arrived here, and looking at the Kinhat when I started prepared to go out for an RFP. That was one of the items that was requested within it by the groups that they had consulted.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So I understand that, you know, we may not have an extreme high level of competitive sport down there when it comes to for some of the ball players, you know, and it's generally, you know, the walking soccer that's taking place at this time. Build it and they will come. You know, right. I don't.
Yeah, I've not had any requests at all for change rooms, and I'm pretty familiar with what's happening down there.
Sure, and this is and this is obviously is just something that we've put down that would be sort of an a la carte. And if council's not, you know what, we don't need change rooms. Right. This isn't a highly competitive area. This isn't, you know, PCL sports such as, you know, the real high level baseball or soccer where they have to change into uniforms and, you know. And
yeah, it's not like hockey. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just something that we put on there. I think a washroom facility with and a meeting space would not be a bad thing by any means to be able to provide for whoever, and whether they tie it into whether they have their AGMs there or people gather to have even more additional family picnic time, or they can use the community if there's a space there to use the concessions such to cook with or prepare food. You know, those might be some of the things that we should be looking at, specifically with us putting in a performance stage. You know, this is a popular place, as you all know. I've only been here 6 months, and I'm just amazed. You know, it's fantastic, and we're not even seeing what really we offer. I'm not seeing what's really offered, and so you know, a well thought out, planned amenities such as this that's going to provide for the next 20 years going forward would be, I think, a good thing for this community.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a couple questions, if I may. Going back, our budget currently has an amount set for pickleball. If I'm not mistaken, there's a couple $100,000 or $300,000 in there. If we applied for this, then we could use that $300,000 as our equity portion going in. So we're in good shape there. Pardon me? Okay, so there's $800,000 that we
so the pickleball
that we could use somewhere else and or as our equity.
That's our 20s, you know, our 26.7%.
Good. I like that one. We've already got the money set aside for it, so that's a good thing. I happen to think that we should apply for the whole ball of wax, and then let's start to work on it and see what we come up with, and then we can sit down and debate. Do we really need a concession stand there? I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but I think we need to have that space allocated. It needs to be put in the budget. Everything needs to be handled so that when we go to apply or when we go to build, we can have the drawings done up and say, you know what, let's pull this aside, just as exactly what you're saying. I think it's a great plan. The parking lot, I mean, the biggest concern I have about it is that right now it's not near as accessible as it needs to be for wheelchairs and for people with mobility issues. I would really like to see that paved so that it's a lot better and it's a lot nicer. It looks neater. It does all the things that you mentioned as well. And, you know, is it going to be a quick rush? Yep. Is it going to be tough to do? Yep. But if we don't ask the question, they can't say no. So let's go with this, and let's go for the full 9 yards, and then we can sit down. We've got some time to breathe, and then we can sit down and draw the plans and decide as a group what we want to have in this area. My God, folks! I mean, you look at this. We got $1.2 million going in over at the stage. We've got what, $800,000 going in at the gathering place already. Another two. There's not many communities that have this kind of facility that we're going to have when it's all said and done, and we just keep adding to it. It's beautiful. So let's keep going. So I need Councillor Patterson. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Councillor Patterson.
I'll defer to Councillor O'Brien if he has a question. Otherwise, I'm putting forward a motion.
Okay, Councillor Fraz indicated he has questions too, so the two of you.
Thanks. I have two questions, one question, comment. First one would be just through the mayor to Guy regarding the parking lot, the paving of it. I do think paving it is a good improvement there. One of the things that I'm thinking of as well is that center meridian is just a large grass strip in there. I think it'd be hugely beneficial to have some trees planted in that area. One of the reasons being when you can provide shade for the cars in the parking lot, similar to what you have next door to the curling rink. Their center meridians have trees in there. It's wonderful for parking, so your car's not scorching hot for people that go down there. And I think the view as well would be improved with having some more trees there. The other comment is just regarding things about how we're going about this process of what we're talking about concession and applying for grants. I recognize that there's money available for grants, and so it's, you know, hey, let's apply for it and we can decide later. At the same time, that's what I see as how things kind of get rooted in going a certain direction before any decisions are made, because then after the fact you go, well, look, we've already started down this process. It was a unanimous approval of going for this grant, so now we should carry on to this path. But where I see it, not that I have an issue with concession in particular, but I have an issue that we haven't decided if that's even a path we want to go down. Talk about things like a gathering space where we're going to improve it for food trucks and that. So which way are we going? What kind of food services are we planning to bring to the park, and what are they going to look like? The gathering space on its own, I mean, we're in that same position that we applied for a grant and then, we'll decide and really look at it after. We've never really looked at it. Now we're going down that route. So what is the vision that we have? Are we going to be bringing in coffee services down to the beach? Are they going to be competing with local coffee shops up on top of the hill or in the community? Are we looking to bring more people down to the beach to do their eating? Or are we looking to bring them up into the community to do their eating? We haven't discussed that, and right now we're going with the path of least resistance, and I don't always think that's the best way to go. It's particularly, again, why I wanted to bring this to as a full council table so we can all have a decision on that, and I think we need to spend a little bit more time thinking about that. If we do apply for a grant in the meantime, before we hear back from it, I think we should be deciding, are we wanting a concession, or are we wanting food trucks, or how are we wanting that to look like?
Guy, and then I'll.
If I could, Your Honor, through to Councillor Frost. So there is a landscaping, there's a landscaping component within the estimate for the parking lot conversion. So, and I do concur with you with your idea of having trees. Sometimes it can be called a heat sink, and it's a little bit tough on them. It can be a little more challenging to keep them robust and lively. But there is things we can do to undertake that. So. That is taken into account for sure. There are grant requirements as well. So when we do our application, we do a Class A or a Class B conceptual. So drawing goes in, and we have to say what we want at that time. So taking upon both of what you've stated is if I'm not, yeah. So we have to have written in there, this is what we're going to do. So we can have a picture drawn that's just very, similar to what was there with the washroom facility. This is what it generally would look like, and, some things may change pending, but we're asking for washroom, meeting room, and a concession with a viewing platform, or whatever it may be.
Well, the CAOs, please speak.
If I may, Your Worship, through you to Council, one of the things that I've been just thinking about as we're talking here is that I think staff can work to essentially create a flexible space. And so with what Councillor Chandler was saying and what Councillor Fraz is saying, I think we could probably identify something on the drawings that says sort of community kitchen, concession, sports, meeting room sort of idea, so that we're not backing ourselves into a sort of a one option. And I think the trend I'm seeing these days is that everything is a multi-use space. We don't have the luxury of having those dedicated for one use only. So I think staff can work to incorporate some of those ideas into the drawings and into the proposal, so that we have that flexibility on, how it's operated, what it actually ends up being. The four walls will probably look the same, but inside that, I think we can provide ourselves a bit of that kind of backup plan.
Great idea.
Thank you. I would tend to disagree with Councillor Fraz in the fact that there is a plan. It's called the CPMP or whatever the acronym is for it. Well, I mean, but it's there and it was well thought through at the time. We may not be looking at it 100% intact the way it was, but for all intents and purposes, it is a plan that is out there, and we could be talking about it 3 months from now, and it's going to change. Some of our ideas will change again, but you can't wait until we get to the perfect plan, because we're never going to get to a perfect plan in this one. I happen to think that when we do this, let's do it. You know, the CAO's description of how to handle it, that's kind of what I had in my vision, is that, you know, if it's a concession, if marked as a concession building, if we decide to make it a meeting room, it becomes a meeting room. You just, instead of putting a open and closed big door, you just have windows instead. They're very easy switchovers at that point in time. We can adjust the small things. As far as the gathering space, I mean, that was done over a 2 year or 3 year period when they went through it, and so it's there. I mean, you know, yeah, where would I like to see a concession stand? I'd like to see the concession stand over towards the gathering place, but that's just me. I mean, I'm not married to that one. I'm going to keep a wide open mind. But having said that, I think we go for the full 9 yards here. Let's see what we've got, and I happen to believe that this is a good thing. So, Councillor O'Brien, is that finger an indicator you want to speak? Yes, okay.
Councillor Patterson kindly allowed me to go forward first, but Your Worship, I think is probably what Councillor Patterson was proposing anyways, just to propose a motion at this time to support the application for all the spaces and amenities as listed by the presentation this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patterson, is that what you were going to propose?
It is. Maybe as our CAO mentioned, use of multi-use space. I wanted to lead in with, my name's been up there for a lot of motions in regards to the community park. It's been and always will be maybe a soft spot for me as I've raised my children in this community. I have had a bench down there dedicated to my children. When we talk about the community park master plan, because that's where all that's coming forward and everything should lead back to, is the community park master plan. Councillor Praz talked about trees and everything in the parking lot, or rain gardens and everything too, something that keeps water retention and that back in place. But I think that if we looked at a general motion moving forward to approve and have staff look at the funding opportunity grant application for October 1st, that would be my recommendation or motion moving forward. So I can either second you or, or vice versa.
You're seconding? Is that what, who's?
I would be prepared to take Councillor Patterson's suggestions, which referred also to the CAO's suggestion about making more common space in general nature, and proceed with the application. So I would certainly second that motion by Councillor.
There you go. Okay, Councillor Patterson. Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. I was going to ask if you would do that. So thank you very much. All right. Question? Conversation? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just want to say, just make a comment about Councillor Praz's comments, that I tend to agree that it is nice to see a big picture. So I just wanted to back you on that. But I also think that the motion, the way it stands, is fine. I don't think at this point we really have a choice but to do it. But I always think it is wise to keep it in mind, our big picture. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Councillor Patterson, last one, and then we'll call the question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just at this point in time, I'm just going to put it out there. We have a lot of things on the go, and we have a lot of thanks to staff for bringing things forward, and I greatly appreciate that. Moving forward, when we talk about the park, and Councillor Praz mentioned it about what do we want? Do we want people down in the park? Do we want them eating? Do we want them coming up to the downtown core and everything? I'm just going to state it again that I think that we need to look at parking and 19A and that again, and work at tying things together. Thank you.
All right. Happen to agree wholeheartedly on the 19A part for sure. All right, folks, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Just wanted you to know that. All right. All right, before we proceed to the special business, I'd like to, it's a good thing it's big print before I put my glasses on, remind the public that our next council meeting will be held on Wednesday, September the 9th at 6 p.m. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that pursuant to Section 91E and I of the Community Charter, Council proceed to a closed meeting to consider items relating to the security of the property of the municipality and land. Moved by Councillor Wilson, second by Councillor Greer. All those in favor? Here we go, 5 minutes. Good meeting.